Hello, students and staff and families.
Hello.
Today we are going to be reading another story, and today we are going to focus on another one of our vocabulary words, and that word is
Go.
a lot of times when we use the word go, we are saying somewhere that we want to go. So we can use it with words. It can also be a direction, like
Go.
if you'd like to refresh yourself on the word go, you can watch the video about go, but today we are going to practice. There is a little boy in the story who has to go different places. And then there are some places that he wants to go, but he is not able to go at that time. So whenever you find a situation where either he goes somewhere or he wants to go somewhere, you can say go using your device or your book. Our story is called The Little Hero of Holland. I'm going to turn so that I can see the words and you can see the pictures. The Little Hero of Holland. This is a true story of a brave heart, one willing to hold on as long as it takes to get the job done. Holland is a country where much of the land lies below sea level. Only great walls called dikes keep the North Sea from rushing in and flooding the land. For centuries, the people of Holland have worked to keep the walls strong so that their country will be safe and dry. Even the little children know the dikes must be watched every moment and that a hole no larger than your finger can be a very dangerous thing. Many years ago in Holland, there lived a boy named Peter. Peter's father was one of the men who tended the gates and the dikes, called sluices. He opened and closed the sluices so that ships could pass out of Holland's canals into the Great Sea. One afternoon in the early fall, when Peter was 8 years old, his mother called him from his play. "Come, Peter," she said. "I want you to go across the dike and take these cakes to your friend, the blind man. If you go quickly and do not stop to play, you will be home again before dark." I'm going to give you a couple seconds here to find the word go. Staff and parents, you can help your students to find the word go, and then you can see if they will repeat it for you. The little boy was glad to go on such an errand and started off with a light heart. He stayed with the poor blind man a little while to tell him about his walk along the dike and about the sun and the flowers and the ships far out at sea. Then he remembered his mother's wish that he should return before dark, and telling his friend goodbye, he decided to go home. Here he is walking. As he walked beside the canal, he noticed how the rains had swollen the waters and how they beat against the side of the dike, and he thought of his father's gates. "I am glad they are strong," he said to himself. "If they gave way, what would become of us? These pretty fields would be covered with water. Father always calls them the angry waters. I suppose he thinks they are angry at him for keeping them out so long." Then he decided to keep going. As he walked along, he sometimes stopped to pick up the pretty blue flowers that grew beside the road. Or to listen to the rabbit's soft tread as they rustled through the grass. But more often he smiled as he thought of his visit to the poor blind man who had so few pleasures and was always so glad to see him. Suddenly the sun was setting and it was growing dark. "Mother will be watching for me," he thought, and he decided to go faster. Go faster. Just then he heard a noise. here's him running too. And now he's hearing a noise. It was the sound of trickling water. Oh no! He stopped and looked down. There was a small hole in the dike through which a tiny stream was flowing. Any child in Holland is frightened at the thought of a leak in the dike. Peter understood the danger at once. If the water ran through the little hole, it would soon make a larger one, and the whole country would be flooded. In a moment, he saw what he must do. He threw away his flowers, and he decided to go down the side of the dike and put his finger into the tiny hole. Here he is. Oh, sorry. Here he is. You see the little hole? It's not too big yet, but if it keeps on cracking, that's not going to be a good thing. So he's holding it back so that it doesn't crack through. The flow of the water was going, but when he put his finger in, it stopped. Aha, he said to himself. The angry water must stay back now. Oh, here he is holding the water in. Angry water must stay back now. I can keep them back with my finger. Holland shall not be drowned while I am here. This was all very well at first, but it soon grew dark and cold. The little fellow shouted and screamed, "Come here, come here!" But no one heard him, and no one came to help him. He was all alone. I bet at that time, he wanted to go home. It grew colder still, and his arm ached and began to grow stiff and numb. He was getting really tired. He wanted to go. He shouted, "Will no one come? Mother, mother!" But his mother had looked anxiously along the dike road many times since sunset for her little boy, and now she had closed and locked the cottage door, thinking that Peter was spending the night with his blind friend, and that she would scold him in the morning for staying away from home without her permission. Peter tried to whistle to cheer himself up, but his teeth chattered with the cold. He thought of his brother and sister and their warm beds, and his dear father and mother. I must not let them be drowned, he thought. I must stay here until someone comes, if I have to stay all night. The moon and stars looked down on the child, crouching on a stone on the side of the dike. His head was bent and his eyes were closed, but he was not asleep, for every now and then he rubbed the hand that was holding back the angry sea. I'll stand it somehow, he thought. So he stayed there all night, keeping the water out. I wonder, do you think he would want to go back to see his family or go back to see his friend, the blind man? Who would you want to see at that point? Would you want to see someone in your family or one of your friends? He stayed there all night, keeping the water out. Early the next morning, a man going to work thought he heard a groan as he walked along the top of the dike. Looking over the edge, he saw a child clinging to the side of the great wall. "What's the matter?" he called. "Are you hurt?" "I'm keeping the water back," Peter yelled. "Tell them to come quickly." Someone came and someone saw him. He's looking up at the man. The man is ready to help him. He said, "Go quickly," to the man. The alarm was spread. People came running with shovels, and the hole was soon mended. They carried Peter, and they went home. They decided to go home to his parents, and before long, the whole town knew how he had saved their lives that night. To this day, they have never forgotten the brave little hero of Holland. So it was tough for him, but he finally did get to go home. Did you find the word "go" while we were reading the story? Something else you could have found was the word "stop." He did stop a lot while we were reading the story. So if you found that word, great job. And another thing that we talked about is, would you rather go see your family member or a friend if you had just been through a tough time? So maybe you and your staff or your family can talk about that. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed the story.